Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. The moment you stop performing for an audience is the moment the audience realizes you were never acting. There is a very specific second in life when the noise around you changes. It's not loud. It doesn't come with applause or confrontation. It comes with an uncomfortable pause on the other side, a delay in responses, a sudden shift in how people move around you. That pause is not confusion, it's calculation. And it only happens when someone realizes the version of you they thought they understood no longer exists. Here's a fact most people never talk about. In high-pressure environments, corporate, political, psychological, even spiritual, the individuals who cause the most disruption are rarely the loud ones. They're the ones who stop reacting. Behavioral studies consistently show that when someone breaks a predictable pattern without explanation, observers experience cognitive dissonance. In simple terms, the brain panics when it can't forecast your next move. That panic doesn't look dramatic on the surface, but internally it triggers reassessment, suspicion, and sometimes fear. Translation: your calm, calculated shift forces people to rewrite their entire mental file on you. And that's exactly what happened with your last move. You didn't announce it. You didn't dramatize it. You didn't call a meeting, write a long message, or post a cryptic quote pretending not to care while very much caring. You just moved, clean, precise, almost disrespectfully quiet. The kind of quiet that makes people replay conversations in their head at 3 a.m., wondering when they lost control of the situation. Funny enough, the moment you stopped explaining yourself is the moment they started explaining you to themselves, and doing a very bad job at it. There's a bit of dark humor in this part. The same people who once felt 10 steps ahead are now holding imaginary meetings in their mind, trying to decode a chess move you made without knocking over a single piece. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't burn bridges, you didn't even look back to see who noticed, and that's what convinced them, because nothing unsettles people more than realizing the person they underestimated didn't disappear, didn't break, didn't seek revenge, just upgraded their position and kept it moving. This isn't about proving anything, it's about the moment they silently agreed, without ever saying it out loud, that you're no longer someone to play with, pressure, or predict. Your last move didn't make noise, it made sense. And sense in the wrong environment feels like a threat. That's where this story begins. Number 1, your last move showed restraint where chaos was expected. They were prepared for noise. That's the part most people don't understand. When tension builds, when pressure stacks up, when someone feels cornered, the expectation is almost automatic. A reaction, anger, explanations, emotional messages, impulsive decisions, or at the very least, something loud enough to confirm they still had access to you. Chaos would have been familiar. Chaos would have made you predictable. And predictability is comforting to people who want to stay in control. What you did instead was pause, not out of fear, not because you were confused, but because you knew reacting would only serve the moment, not the outcome. That pause wasn't passive, it was deliberate. It told them you were thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, while they were still waiting for you to stumble into the trap they set. Restraint is uncomfortable for observers because it removes their leverage. When you don't explode, they can't point to your behavior and say, "See, this is who they are." When you don't rush to defend yourself, they lose the satisfaction of watching you explain things they already decided not to understand. You denied them that, and that denial forced them to sit with their own assumptions. The truth is, restraint requires more strength than reaction. Anyone can react. Reaction is automatic. It's emotional muscle memory. Restraint, on the other hand, requires awareness. It means you recognized the setup, understood the outcome of engaging, and chose not to feed it. That's not weakness, that's control. What really unsettled them wasn't your silence or your calm face. It was the realization that you could have caused chaos and chose not to. That awareness flipped the power dynamic. Suddenly, you weren't someone operating on impulse. You were someone who could withhold, redirect, and wait. And people who wait while others rush tend to win by default. Your restraint also sent a quiet message. You are not governed by their expectations. You don't move just because the moment demands it. You move when it aligns with your long-term position. That's when it clicked for them. Chaos would have been easy. You chose discipline instead. And discipline is intimidating to people who survive on disorder. Number 2, you acted without seeking validation, and that broke their script. There's a hidden power in moving through life without needing anyone to nod, approve, or witness your actions. Most people operate in constant feedback loops. They want reactions, likes, agreement, or even acknowledgement to confirm that what they're doing matters. When someone has been used to controlling, predicting, or manipulating you, they depend on those reactions to feel in charge. Your choices, your emotions, your success. They expected to have a front row seat. They expected validation to be part of the deal. What they didn't expect was for you to act completely independent of their observation. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't justify. You didn't ask anyone if your move made sense or if it was acceptable. You simply did what needed to be done. That lack of acknowledgement wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. You knew the value of your actions didn't increase or decrease based on their perception. That realization is disorienting for anyone who built a narrative around controlling you. Suddenly, their influence, their power, their predictive advantage vanished. People who seek validation leave a trail. They telegraph every decision, every thought, every emotional response. Your independence removed the trail entirely. There was nothing for them to analyze, nothing to exploit, nothing to manipulate. They realized too late that the version of you they thought they understood, reactive, dependent, pliable, never existed. You broke their script not by confrontation, not by proving them wrong, but simply by existing on your own terms. This is why your move was so disruptive. It forced them into a position of uncertainty. They couldn't predict you, control you, or pressure you anymore because you no longer required their acknowledgement to move forward. You operated on your own authority, and authority without validation is magnetic, confusing, and frightening for those who thrive on controlling reactions. Your independence didn't just shift the game, it rewrote it entirely. They learned in real time that they no longer had a role in your story, and that realization hit harder than any argument ever could. Acting without seeking validation isn't just a move, it's a statement. And the quiet intensity of that statement is what made them finally see the truth about you. Number 3, you closed a door without slamming it. There's a subtlety in leaving that most people completely miss. Walking away in anger, yelling, burning bridges, or making a scene is easy. That's the drama everyone expects. But closing a door quietly, decisively, and without chaos, it carries a weight that shakes people in ways shouting never can. When you exit with calm finality, you don't just remove yourself from a situation, you shift the perception of who holds power. That door isn't just a metaphor, it's a statement. You decide when and how connections begin and end, and no one else gets to dictate it. When you walked away without a fight, without over-explaining, without leaving a trail of emotional debris, they realized something important. You weren't leaving out of weakness. You weren't running. You weren't even reacting. You were acting with intention. That's what made them pause, maybe even panic internally. They had expected a reaction they could control, a fight they could win, a piece of chaos they could manipulate. Instead, they got none of that. They got something far more threatening: your clarity. Closing a door quietly forces reflection on the other side. People start looking at their own actions, their own mistakes, and the role they played in letting someone leave without resistance. It's a mirror they can't avoid. And unlike a public fight, which allows them to justify themselves and continue their narrative, your silence leaves them without excuses. They are confronted with the truth of the situation, and it is far more unsettling than anything loud or dramatic could have been. There's also an elegance to this move that speaks louder than any argument. It says you are done, but you did not need to prove it. You are in control, not reactive, and your value doesn't hinge on someone else's recognition. That's when they understood that you are no longer part of the system they thought they controlled. You closed the door and kept the key. They now know the exit was not a loss for you. It was a final confirmation of your power. And that quiet power resonates longer than any scream ever could. Number 4, you made a move that benefited you, even if no one noticed. True power isn't measured by applause, likes, or recognition. Most people operate under the illusion that value exists only when it's acknowledged. They spend their lives seeking attention, validation, or some visible proof that what they do matters. You, however, acted differently. You made a move that strengthened your position, advanced your goals, or protected your future, and you didn't announce it. You didn't need anyone to see it, approve it, or understand it. That invisible action, unnoticed by the majority, carries more weight than any grand gesture ever could. What they failed to grasp is that actions done quietly, without performance, are impossible to manipulate. When you act for the sake of outcome rather than recognition, you remove yourself from the influence of others entirely. The people who were used to predicting your behavior, steering your choices, or exploiting your reactions suddenly found themselves out of the loop. They realized too late that while they were busy tracking visible moves, you were securing the foundation beneath their feet. That quiet, unseen movement speaks louder than any confrontation or declaration because it shows foresight and self-reliance. The beauty of it is in the psychology of unseen work. No one can undermine what they don't know. They can't argue with it, dispute it, or manipulate it. Your invisible victory forces them into an uncomfortable position of confusion. They start second-guessing their assumptions, their power, and even their own relevance in your life. You didn't need them to notice to win, and that's exactly what makes it brilliant. By acting without spectacle, you demonstrated a level of independence that disrupts control. You moved strategically, deliberately, and without concern for how it would be interpreted. That combination of efficiency and detachment made it undeniable. You operate on your own terms. And when people finally catch up to what you've done, it's too late. They're left staring at the results without understanding the method. You benefited silently, profoundly, and permanently, and that is what convinced them beyond any doubt that you are not just present in the game, you are defining it. Number 5, you didn't expose them, even though you could have. There's a moment in every conflict when you realize you hold all the pieces. You know the truths that could shift opinions, reveal secrets, or destroy carefully built facades. Most people would use that power impulsively, whether out of anger, revenge, or the simple satisfaction of proving themselves right. You, however, didn't. You understood that exposing someone is not always a victory. It's often a trap that keeps you entangled in their chaos. By choosing not to expose them, you demonstrated a level of intelligence and control that few ever reach, and that restraint alone unsettles people more than confrontation ever could. Your decision to remain silent wasn't passive. It was deliberate and strategic. It told them without a word that you are capable of dismantling their narrative entirely, but you don't need to. You have the information, the clarity, and the leverage, but you are no longer interested in using it to feed ego or justify yourself. That's terrifying to anyone who built their power on secrecy, lies, or manipulation. They realized that their attempts to provoke or control you had failed. You weren't their participant anymore. You were their observer, and observers rarely lose. Not exposing them also sent a clear message about your maturity and foresight. It showed that your victories aren't temporary, flashy, or reactive. They are sustainable. You operate on long-term strategy, not short-term satisfaction. While they scrambled, replaying conversations and questioning their own actions, you moved forward, unbothered and unshaken. And the most powerful part is that your silence forced them to confront themselves. Without your confirmation, without public exposure, they had no choice but to reckon with their own behavior internally. That internal reckoning is far more effective than anything you could say externally. It changes how they think, how they approach you, and how they attempt to interact moving forward. By not exposing them, you didn't just protect yourself, you redefined the power dynamic entirely. You made them aware that their manipulations were transparent to you, and that knowledge alone is a quiet, unstoppable form of authority. They know now that you could act, but you chose not to, and that choice left them powerless in a way no argument ever could. Number 6, you refused to argue with lies that were designed to provoke you. People thrive on reactions, especially when those reactions validate their version of reality. Lies are powerful tools for manipulation because they force the other person to respond, defend themselves, or explain what is already obvious. Most people fall into the trap without even realizing it. They justify, clarify, or try to reason with the falsehoods, thinking that proving the truth will restore control. You didn't. You recognize that arguing with lies is giving energy to illusions, and you chose to preserve your energy instead. That refusal to engage is far more disruptive than any argument could ever be. By not responding, you broke their expectations in a way that is impossible to anticipate. They had rehearsed how you would react, what words you would use, how you might stumble or falter. Their whole strategy depended on your participation in the narrative they created. When you didn't take the bait, everything they counted on crumbled silently. They realized they weren't in control, and the realization hit harder because it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, deliberate, and undeniable. Ignoring lies also forced them to face a truth they cannot escape. You operate on your own terms. They couldn't manipulate your emotions or create a spectacle to make you defend yourself. Their lies, designed to provoke, only exposed their weakness to you. You didn't waste time correcting, explaining, or confronting, because doing so would have made their falsehoods more relevant. Your detachment turned the lie into a reflection of them, not you, and that shift in perspective is profoundly unsettling. The brilliance of this move is in its subtlety. Silence in the face of deception is not inaction, it's power. It communicates that you are above the petty attempts to control, shame, or trap you. You became untouchable, not because you disproved them, but because you refused to participate on their terms. That refusal doesn't just protect you, it forces them to acknowledge deep down that their strategies no longer work. You turned lies into mirrors and provocation into irrelevance, and that's the moment they knew. They underestimated you at their own peril. Number 7, you move forward without explaining your healing. Healing is deeply personal, and the moment you start justifying it to others, you give them power over your progress. Most people, when they recover from hurt, betrayal, or trauma, feel compelled to explain themselves, to prove that they are okay, or to show that they've grown. You didn't do that. You didn't send updates, post subtle reminders, or make anyone watch your transformation. You simply moved forward. That decision alone shifted the balance of power because it denied them the ability to track you, control your narrative, or measure your progress against their expectations. By moving forward quietly, you revealed something they couldn't easily digest. Your strength isn't performative. You don't need witnesses to validate your growth, and you don't seek approval to confirm your recovery. That independence is unsettling to anyone who thrives on influence or who once assumed they had leverage over you. When people are used to tracking, judging, or predicting your responses, your silent progress becomes confusing and threatening. They start to wonder how someone they thought they understood can rise without fanfare, without announcements, without proving anything. Your choice also exposed their misunderstanding of you. They assumed your past struggles would define your present, that your healing would be visible, that you would bend your process into a shape they could recognize. By refusing to explain, you forced them to confront the truth. Your transformation exists on your terms, not theirs. They can speculate, misinterpret, or attempt to minimize it, but they cannot affect it. This quiet advancement is more powerful than any confrontation or declaration because it shows mastery of self rather than mastery over others. You moved through your pain and emerged stronger without relying on anyone to acknowledge it. And that's when they realize something fundamental. Your progress is unstoppable, internal, and untouchable. You didn't need to prove your healing to anyone, and by choosing not to, you revealed a level of autonomy and authority that leaves others scrambling to understand what they can't influence. You advanced silently, and that alone became your loudest statement. Number 8, you became harder to read, not colder. There's a difference between being distant and being unreadable, and you mastered the latter. People are used to predictability. They count on patterns, reactions, and emotional cues to know where they stand with you. They expect to understand you, to anticipate your next move, to exploit moments when they think they see a weakness. What you did was shift the entire dynamic without shutting yourself off. You didn't become cold or detached. You became deliberate, measured, and impossible to predict. That subtle change is far more disorienting than any display of anger or distance could ever be. By becoming harder to read, you forced them into uncertainty. They could no longer rely on your expressions, words, or timing to make assumptions about you. That uncertainty is uncomfortable because humans are wired to fear unpredictability, especially when it comes to someone they've tried to control. When they realized that they couldn't anticipate your reactions, their sense of security dissolved. What was once a clear path of influence became a maze with no map, and suddenly every move they considered took longer, felt riskier, and lost its confidence. The beauty of this isn't in confusion for confusion's sake. It's in the power it grants you. Being unreadable doesn't mean you act without feeling. It means you choose your actions carefully, keeping your intentions and thoughts private until the moment you decide to reveal them. That level of discretion makes you untouchable in ways they can't articulate. You are no longer a participant in their game. You are the player they can't anticipate. This shift also communicates control without confrontation. They can sense that something has changed, even if they can't pinpoint what it is. That awareness gnaws at them, creating hesitation and second-guessing in every interaction. People who were once confident in their ability to influence you suddenly feel vulnerable. You didn't raise walls, you refined your access points. You didn't push them away, you made yourself strategically elusive. And that difference, subtle yet profound, is what convinces them that you are operating on a level they cannot penetrate, leaving them both unsettled and aware of your quiet mastery. Number 9. You stopped correcting people who misunderstood you. There's a power in letting misunderstandings exist without interference. Most people feel the need to clarify, explain, or justify themselves when someone gets them wrong. They think correction proves intelligence, strength, or credibility. What they don't realize is that reacting to every misinterpretation only keeps them in control of the narrative. You broke that cycle by refusing to correct anyone, and that refusal is far more threatening than any argument could ever be. By allowing false versions of yourself to exist, you took away their ability to influence you. Every misunderstanding that once might have frustrated you became irrelevant. Their misjudgments, assumptions, and stories no longer dictated your actions or thoughts. You didn't need to step in to defend yourself because the truth about you isn't dependent on their perception. That independence is unnerving for anyone who has relied on your reactions to feel dominant or superior. Suddenly, their carefully constructed ideas about you no longer mattered. They were nothing more than noise. What makes this move extraordinary is that it exposes their weakness. People who rely on misunderstanding to manipulate or control assume you will engage, explain, or react. When you don't, their assumptions collapse under their own weight. They are forced to confront the fact that you are not accessible on their terms. They start questioning their own judgment, replaying interactions, and realizing that the version of you they thought they understood never existed in the first place. That internal doubt is far more powerful than any confrontation could create. Allowing misunderstandings to remain also highlights your confidence and emotional intelligence. It signals that you don't need validation, approval, or acknowledgement from them to operate effectively. Your actions, decisions, and presence speak louder than any explanation ever could. By choosing silence over correction, you set yourself apart from ordinary reactions and demonstrated a rare form of mastery, control over your narrative, your energy, and your peace. In that calm, deliberate decision, they finally understood. You are no longer a participant in their interpretations. You are the author of your own reality, untouchable and unbothered. Number 10, you made peace with being underestimated. Being underestimated is often seen as a weakness, something to fix, defend against, or prove wrong. Most people panic when they realize someone has misjudged their abilities or intentions. They scramble, react, overcompensate, or try to assert themselves loudly to correct the misconception. You didn't do that. You accepted it. You made peace with it. That acceptance isn't resignation. It's a declaration of control. By letting others underestimate you, you created an invisible advantage, one they couldn't see, predict, or manipulate. When people underestimate you, they leave gaps in their guard. They assume they know your limits, your reactions, your capabilities. And in doing so, they open doors that you can quietly walk through. You didn't need to announce your strengths or prove your potential. You simply moved, acted, and achieved in ways that made their assumptions irrelevant. That's where the true power lies. Underestimation works in your favor when you refuse to react to it, because it allows you to operate under the radar while they remain trapped in their own flawed perception. There's also a psychological edge in being underestimated. People who think they're ahead tend to lower their vigilance, take shortcuts, and underestimate the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, you are aware, prepared, and deliberate. Every step you take is calculated, and every silent victory is amplified because it happens outside their expectations. Their misjudgment becomes your tool, not your obstacle. Making peace with being underestimated also communicates inner security. It shows that your self-worth, your strategy, and your trajectory are independent of anyone's opinion. You don't need to justify your path, and you don't need to broadcast your power to feel it. That quiet confidence unsettles anyone who relies on perception to influence outcomes. They start questioning themselves, their assumptions, and their understanding of your potential. By accepting underestimation, you didn't just survive it, you weaponized it. You turned someone else's blindness into your advantage, and in doing so, you revealed a level of mastery and patience that most people never see coming. The moment they realized you were not only aware of their underestimation, but thriving in it, that's when they truly understood your depth, your strength, and the fact that you are operating on a plane they cannot reach. Number 11. You didn't return to familiar cycles even when invited. People assume that everyone has a breaking point, a place where old habits, old relationships, and old patterns will pull them back in. They expect loyalty, guilt, nostalgia, or even curiosity to act like magnets. Most people, when tempted, revert to familiar cycles because they seek comfort, approval, or connection, even when those cycles are toxic or limiting. You didn't. You refused. Even when the invitation was there, even when the door was open, even when it seemed natural or expected, you stayed forward. That refusal is a statement louder than words. It tells them you are no longer available on the terms they designed. By not returning, you redefined the boundaries of your life. They had imagined that your history would dictate your choices, that familiarity would make you predictable. When you didn't come back, they realized that they had no leverage over your decisions anymore. Their attempts to manipulate through shared pasts, old emotions, or even simple routines were ineffective. That's the moment they understood that your loyalty and attention are earned on your terms, not demanded by proximity or memory. Refusing to re-enter familiar cycles also communicates self-mastery. It shows that you are aware of your patterns, your triggers, and the environments that no longer serve you. You act with intention rather than impulse. You don't need repetition to feel secure or validated. That kind of independence makes people uncomfortable because it disrupts the script they expected you to follow. There's a subtle power in this move. By not returning, you force reflection on the other side. They are left considering what they lost, what they mismanaged, and why they can no longer predict or control you. Every invitation you declined reinforced the idea that you are moving forward, stronger and untethered. You didn't need to announce it. Your absence was the message. By refusing familiar cycles, you demonstrated that your growth, decisions, and life are governed by your vision, not by habit or expectation. That realization unsettled them more than any confrontation could, because it confirmed that you are fully operating on your own terms, untouchable by the gravitational pull of the past. Number 12, you chose alignment over urgency. Most people act out of urgency, driven by fear of missing out, pressure, or the need to be seen moving. They rush into decisions, grab opportunities that feel immediate, and often sacrifice long-term stability for short-term appearances. You didn't. You chose alignment over urgency. You didn't take action simply because it was available or demanded. You waited for what truly matched your vision, values, and strategy. That patience sent a signal louder than any statement ever could. You are in control of your timing, and nothing external dictates your pace. By prioritizing alignment, you exposed a level of discernment most people never develop. Others scramble, panic, or overcommit when the clock is ticking or when someone pressures them. They assume you would do the same. When you didn't, it disrupted their expectations. They realized that their attempts to manipulate or rush you were ineffective. You operate on principle, not pressure. You move only when conditions are right, and that kind of discipline is rare enough to unsettle anyone who assumed they understood you. Choosing alignment also protects your energy and integrity. Every action you take now serves a purpose, whether visible or invisible to others. You don't dilute your efforts to satisfy external demands or superficial timelines. That means every move you make carries impact and momentum, while those reacting to urgency burn themselves out chasing results that are fleeting. Your silence or delay is not weakness. It's strategic preservation, and people who don't recognize the difference are left in confusion, wondering why you aren't panicking like they would. The power in this decision lies in control. You didn't just act deliberately, you acted with foresight. By valuing alignment over immediate reaction, you signaled that your life is orchestrated on your terms, and your decisions are not negotiable. They are not suggestions or responses, they are declarations. When people finally see that your choices are governed by principle, purpose, and timing, they understand that you are untouchable in your focus, unshakable in your priorities, and impossible to manipulate through the false urgency they tried to impose. Number 13. You remained consistent when no one was rewarding you. Consistency is easy when people are watching, when praise is flowing, and when recognition is immediate. The real test of character, however, shows up in moments when no one is noticing, applauding, or validating your efforts. That's where most people falter. They slow down, cut corners, or lose focus because external attention has vanished. You didn't. You stayed the course. You maintained your standards, followed your principles, and kept moving forward, even when it seemed invisible to the world. That unwavering consistency is a quiet kind of power that people underestimate at first, but it's the kind that leaves a lasting impact. By continuing without reward or acknowledgement, you revealed the truth about your motivations. You act not for approval, not for recognition, and certainly not for someone else's validation. Your actions are rooted in integrity, purpose, and self-discipline. That realization is disorienting for anyone who relies on external cues to gauge influence or control. They are left watching, realizing that nothing they do can sway you, manipulate your energy, or dictate your pace. Your consistency becomes a silent statement. You are not reactive, you are self-directed. The beauty of this approach is that it builds momentum that is independent of perception. People who operate for attention create results that are fragile, temporary, and often performative. You, on the other hand, create outcomes that are lasting because your focus is internal, your standards are non-negotiable, and your vision is clear. The world may not see it immediately, but your actions compound quietly, leaving those who underestimated you scrambling to catch up when the results finally surface. Remaining consistent without reward also communicates confidence and autonomy. It shows that your value isn't tied to anyone else's acknowledgement. You don't need applause to validate your effort, and you don't require recognition to feel successful. That level of independence unsettles people who are used to influencing others through approval, praise, or attention. By proving that your discipline exists regardless of audience, you demonstrated a rare mastery of self, one that can't be shaken, argued with, or diminished. In that consistency, you revealed a force that is silent, unmovable, and entirely your own. Number 14, you left them with no leverage. Leverage is the currency of control. Most people operate in relationships, situations, or conflicts by creating small hooks, emotional triggers, secrets, attachments, or predictable reactions that they can pull to influence others. They rely on these points of access to maintain power. What you did was remove every single one of those hooks. You didn't just defend yourself or push back. You ensured there was nothing left for them to exploit. That kind of move is subtle, strategic, and terrifying to anyone who has grown accustomed to manipulating circumstances or people. By leaving no leverage, you shifted the entire dynamic without a single argument or confrontation. They could no longer use your emotions, your history, your weaknesses, or your patterns against you. Their usual methods of influence failed entirely. Every attempt to provoke, control, or pressure you was met with neutrality, clarity, and decisiveness. That left them frustrated, off balance, and painfully aware of how much power they had lost. They realized that every traditional route they once counted on to steer you or bend you to their will was now closed, and that awareness is far more disorienting than a dramatic confrontation ever could be. Removing leverage also communicates mastery. It says that you operate from a position of strength that is independent of anyone else's perception or participation. You are not reactive, you are not predictable, you are not available for manipulation. When someone recognizes that they can no longer influence or pressure you, They instinctively reassess their approach, their strategy, and their understanding of your capabilities. The most powerful aspect of this move is that it doesn't rely on noise, explanation, or proof. You simply made yourself unexploitable. Every word, every reaction, every decision was filtered through strategy and self-possession. That leaves a silent, undeniable truth. You are operating on a plane where others cannot touch you. Their influence is gone, and the moment they realized it, they understood something critical. They underestimated not just your power, but your awareness. By leaving no leverage, you didn't just protect yourself. You revealed the full extent of your authority, independence, and control, and that revelation is unforgettable. Conclusion. Everything we've explored here points to one undeniable truth. You operate on a level most people cannot even begin to comprehend. Every move you made, the restraint when chaos was expected, the silent victories, the refusal to react to lies, the careful advancement without explanation, the mastery of timing, and the elimination of every leverage point was a statement. Not loud, not flashy, but absolute. You proved that real power isn't about showing off or being seen. It's about control, awareness, and discipline. It's about understanding that influence over yourself outweighs influence over others, and that independence is more valuable than applause. Every strategy you employed exposed a fundamental reality to those around you. You cannot be manipulated, underestimated, or provoked into serving someone else's narrative. By moving deliberately, quietly, and with unwavering focus, you shifted the dynamics in your favor without anyone realizing it until it was too late. People who once thought they had control over your actions now find themselves guessing, doubting, and recalculating their every move. That is the true mark of mastery. Your impact is felt not in theatrics, but in the silent recalibration of those who thought they understood you. You have demonstrated that power is not a performance. It is a state of being. Your choices, your consistency, your alignment, and your independence have rewritten the rules of engagement in every interaction. You are no longer a player on someone else's board. You are defining the game, moving strategically, and ensuring that every step forward strengthens your position. What was once assumed, expected, or taken for granted is now recognized. You are operating on your own terms, untouchable and undeniable. If this resonates with you, take a moment to let it sink in, because understanding your own power is the first step to wielding it fully. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss insights like this. Like this video if it spoke to you. Comment your thoughts or experiences below. We want to hear how you've been implementing your own strategies of control and independence. And share this with someone who needs to realize their own strength, because understanding the depth of your influence is not just powerful, it's transformative. Keep moving forward, unshaken, and always remember, your last move has already changed the game. God bless you.